There we go. All right. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. 26th of November, the end of November almost.
Yeah.
And I was very curious about you, Joe. Wanted to ask you, or meant to ask you so many times, how do you spend your morning routine with the channeling from messages from Ariah? Is it like every day you have to do your duty?
So I get messages in a couple of different ways. As far as like a channeling routine, I don't have one. So like the messages that I got for the book and a lot of the messages that are the videos that I've made for the YouTube channel, were from channeled sessions. So I've told you before how it started with the past life regression, and then Ariah started coming through channeling. And then after that first time, the next sessions after that, we didn't really do any of the past life stuff. It was straight to, I would go through the whole hypnosis stage. She would walk me through the, down the steps, whatever, through the door. And then usually in the beginning, there would be like the ascended masters sitting there, and it would be like from left to right. It was like Krishna and Kali, and there's somebody I still don't know who it is. Like I want to say maybe Muhammad or something, but I'm not familiar with who they are, and they never like introduce themselves. And then there's Buddha, and then Jesus is always on the right. And they're always kind of sitting in the same order when I would come through. And then sometimes like Metatron had a message for me one time. Um, and then I would just meet different, in the beginning, I would see different things. They'd give me like a little message or, hey, good job, or whatever was going on type of thing.
Pat on your back.
Yeah, literally. um, and and then Ariah would come through and start to channel after a couple of minutes of whatever it was. So you could tell the difference. It was like me in the first person talking, probably my higher self, I'm assuming. And then kind of seeing these things from my perspective. And then you'd hear the deep breath come through, and then Ariah would come through, and they would kind of explain, if I didn't understand maybe the message that was coming through or whatever, they would, kind of clear it up for me. And then they would go on to channel for however long. It was usually like an hour and a half to 2 to 3 hours that I would do these sessions for. And we would record them, just the audio. And then I would just go back through and take the messages from the channeled sessions and create the videos. And then the other way that I get messages is a little bit more random. So it's not like I wake up in the morning and say, hey, what do you got for me today? It's kind of like I'll be thinking of something, and they're like, well, here's how you should think about that. Or like I always like to use the Disney video example, because it was my wife and I were watching something on Disney, and I was standing there and I'm like, man, it's terrible how, you hear about all the child trafficking and the tunnels under Disney and all these different, crazy things that, you wouldn't assume that from when you're a kid growing up and it's this magical place, whatever. And they were like, yeah, you can look at that, or you can look at.
Sorry. What? In Disney World, they would be trafficking kids?
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
maybe I misunderstood. So that's why I want clarification. Because
Yeah.
I have no clue what
So
I
there's
know what
tunnels
is
under all
child
these
trafficking.
different places that I've channeled about the dumbs, and then those deep underground military bases where they do a lot of experimentation. And I don't want to go too far into it because video will get taken down. But from what I understand, there's tunnels underneath like Disneyland, Disney World, these different theme parks and stuff where kids just randomly go missing. And
Because there are families, they go their kids to like, I don't know, look at something, and they would,
a
I don't
kid
know.
just wanders off, or
Yeah.
church group or school group, I'm assuming, there's always the straggler or something that someone's not paying a close enough
Yes.
attention to. But so there's that part of it. And then so they said, yeah, you can focus on that, or you could think back to when you had that magical experience as a child, going there and seeing those things and watching their movies and feeling that magic of Disney. And it's the duality of the third dimension. You choose to focus on what you want to focus on. So you can focus on the fact that, yeah, they do these bad things and these negative things, but they also do bring a lot of magic to people and a lot of happiness. So
But
which
they're
one
not
do you
the
want
same
to focus
people
on?
though, right?
What's that?
They're not the same people
It is the
providing
same people.
magic. It
So that's what people have to understand is how all this works. What is the best guise to say that you're not doing something than to be the opposite of what you're actually doing, right? So if you're being magical for kids and making movies for kids and you're also child trafficking, it doesn't make sense for that when you say that to the average person, right? It's like, no, they love kids. Haven't you seen Disney World? Haven't you seen all the movies they make? And then you get a little deeper and a little darker, and it's like, well, what better cover? What better cover than to be, child protective services, and you're the biggest, one of the biggest child trafficking, so it's like your front
The
is your.
how is it the under the light, what is it?
What do you mean?
There's this expression that the most hidden is under the light.
Oh yeah, right in your face.
How
I know
does
what you're
it
saying.
go? Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say. I'm not exactly sure of the expression, but um yeah, I know exactly what you're trying to say, but yeah, basically it's, you put it right in the daylight so that people can see. And then that's kind of what we were talking about last time with the useful idiots. It's kind of that propagation of they have enough people to say what they want to say and have this belief system, which is true. I mean, it is true, but they're just not seeing the whole picture, right? So there is this magic, there is the truth that they bring happiness to children. Disney World is a magic, there is all that, but then there's the other side too. So, and it's our choice to choose to focus on which side we want to focus on. And I think we were talking about before how what we pay attention to is what grows and gains energy and attention. So if we don't pay attention to things, then hopefully they start to go away.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just thinking at first the idea of whoever goes and work in like a zoo, for example, or amusement park, right? Like how, but that's not it. It goes higher.
Right.
Yes,
So, and that's
obviously.
what that's what so many people, when like with the whole jab and the medical field and all these things, and they're like, so you're telling me that all these people are in on this huge world conspiracy? And it's like, no, it doesn't take that at all. And anybody who's been in the military should know exactly how this works. It's called compartmentalization. This room doesn't have any idea what this room's doing, but they're working together towards the same goal, right? So you tell this room they're doing one thing, you tell this room they're doing another thing, and neither one of them have any idea what they're actually really doing, but they both think they're doing right and good. But it's the people who are in the room above that are controlling everything, right? So everybody thinks that they're doing the right thing. They just don't realize the orders that they're carrying out are for, nefarious purposes.
Mm.
And that's how easy the con is, because then you have your useful idiots again who, oh, what do you have, the whole world conspiracy where everybody's keeping this secret? And it's like, no, you need like 5 people, or I don't know how many people it takes to do a conspiracy, but it doesn't take very many. All it takes is enough people who think they're doing right, who believe in the people who are telling them what to do. And there you go. And all the people who are telling them to do is have to put on a good show like politicians have done for years and make people believe that they actually care about them when they don't. It's not a hard gig.
Yeah, and the same goes for church and school boards.
Everything. It's all, and I don't know how connected it is. I don't know if it's all just this one group at the top that's like, yeah, we have to get them in all these different ways. I don't know if it's all that, much, or if
You
it's
can
just,
leave it up to everybody else to think what they want.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not trying to go too conspiracy minded here, but I always just question everything. Is it complete control or is it complete coincidence? I don't know. Could be a little bit of both.
Well, and that's when your heart breaks, right? Or your bubble dreams are pop. Like I just thought that it's like a cool thing to work in a Disney World, and now I'm
Yeah.
finding these things. Or I all I wanted ever was to help people as a nurse or a doctor, right? And now I don't know, the head doctor is telling me this and that, and it's like I'm not in agreement with that. And then you're
Yeah.
starting waking up, so I'm still waking up too.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's kind of, but you could focus on both sides of, like you said, you could say, yeah, we got duped, just like when I was in the military. It's the same thing, the whole war that's been going on for 20 years, whatever, all that stuff. It was a complete lie, so, but what was our intention? What was your intention with being in the medical field? You know, what were you trying to do? And that's what really matters. It's not, you weren't trying to deceive people. You were trying to help people. You didn't know that you were being.
It's just when you realize that you worked for those, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. But you know, don't be hard on yourself like you went into it with, you know, nobody, a lot of people had no idea.
No, of
And
course.
you know, a lot of people still have no idea.
Yeah. Mm, will we ever be told the truth, right?
It's out there. All the truth is out there. It's just a matter of whether people want to, one, find it, and two, accept it. It's that everything is out there. All disclosure, all alien races, everything is out there. Everything that's happening, it's all out there. It's already been released. It's already known to somebody. It's just a matter of whether or not you're ready to believe it or not. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. There's no new info. I mean, there might be some information that, you know, I feel like I said, everybody knows something. So none of the information is new to everybody. It's just a matter of how many people it's new to.
Yeah, what I mean is like there's too much, right? And so you can't really know everything. And then it's as you
Do you
said,
want
you
to?
started. Well, first of all, and second, in the first video, it's when I was asking you, like, how was your journey? So you start discovering all kinds of areas, right? So let's say
Mhm.
yesterday, I was talking to a member from the FTP who actually works with dark entities or energies and removing them of people, because that's what he was given as a gift since he was born like that, right? So let's say he was explaining how they would have this session, a healing session, and they would do it as a group. And then let's say they would have, it's going to be really interesting video to watch for everyone, really. So let's say there was a couple and the guy had dementia and his senior wife had some health problems. So they concentrated on her, but let's say they would be only healing. And then when he would report, but I see the dark entities around them, right? And for example, he has eye problems. It's because he doesn't want to see that there is some dark energies holding on to his wife, right? So he's blinded by that as well, and so on and so on. So these are the things like, hell, like even that, right? So it's like so much of everything, and you would have to be spending hours upon hours on YouTube or all kinds of platforms to be, absorbing all this information. So it's
Right.
like it's a lot out there. It is out
Oh,
there for
so
sure,
much.
but it's like, oh god, even that, right? I didn't know. And then why, I wish I'd known this like 5 years ago and so on, right?
Why?
And so he was being banned from these circles, right?
Oh
Because they
yeah.
were like, no, we just want to provide good, we want to heal, like there's nothing dark and so on. Like that's another thing that people don't want to accept, what you were just talking about, the duality, right? And
Yeah.
so he had a really hard time claiming his gifts, but that's, he said, like it's also needed, because you talked about it too when you said like some person had, I'm not sure, I don't remember how it went, whether it was you or it was your wife, and then you had to step in, the person had like something dark in the back, and you called Mike, Archangel Michael,
Michael. Yeah.
and so he would have to like chop it off, right? The
Yeah.
person's
Yeah.
energetic body and so on, right? So it is there. And do we know, do we feel it?
I think we do, but not in the way that you would kind of think it. And it's so subtle, and you would just think, like I thought, like I just would wake up and I'm angry and I have no idea why, and I'm just in a bad mood. And I think it shows itself more in that way than like you feel like some piece of glob hanging on you. You know, it's not
No,
like a
you wouldn't
physical, it's,
feel that way, right?
but they're affecting your thoughts and your emotions. And, you know, when you get caught in those feedback loops of this person, these scenarios that never even took place yet, and you're going through this whole argument and like something that, you know, is never going to happen, and then by the time you're done, you're all pissed off and heated, and you just had this huge war in your head, and then it never happens, and it's like, what was that all about? And so yeah, I think it's more like that than anything. And I'm sure that it manifests differently for everybody. So maybe it manifests as physical pain. I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely possible, you know.
Well, wherever they can get you the
Yeah.
easiest. So whatever is the weekend
Right.
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to what you said, you would, let's say, channel your higher self, and
Mhm.
then you would just like have this breath, right? It
Mhm.
when you said that, I was like, it happens to me. I didn't know that I could be like, but I felt it somehow intuitively. This could be it when like a through the breath, like a different breath, like all of a sudden, why would it happen, right?
Yeah.
When I'm like slowly breathing in and out, and it's like, what is that, right?
Yeah.
So that could be, what is it? How would you describe it? I don't want to call it because I may be saying it wrong. So I would like
Uh,
you to explain it. Is it like a an angelic entity comes through
I
into
don't
your field and says,
100% know the process. From what I understand about channeling, it is basically they're on their frequency, I'm on my frequency, and we're either tuning to each other's or we're finding one in the middle that we attune to. And the way I believe that the channeling happens is they are sending energetic messages through me that come to my brain, which I translate through our language, right?
yeah,
So it's going to sound a lot like the way I talk in some
of course.
ways because it's coming through obviously me talking, but it's different in a lot of ways too. Like the way that their cadences is a little different. Their word usage is a little bit different than I would use. Although it started to kind of become one and the same more since I've done the channeling and stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't because the deep breath thing is I picked up on that actually when I was writing the book, and I had to listen to each 5 seconds 500 times to try to type it out and everything. And I started to pick up that every time Ariah would come through, it would be a deep breath, and then they would start to channel. So I thought it was interesting. I didn't even notice it, obviously when I'm channeling, I'm in that hypnotic state, so I never noticed. But yeah, I started noticing when I was like 4 or 5 sessions into the book, and I'm like, every time she comes through, it's or they or he or whoever it is at the time, however they come through. Um, but yeah, I started to notice that. So I don't know if it's just kind of that extra energy that's because when they're channeling through, like especially the first few times, the energy is so intense. Like I was sitting there just like I felt like I was shaking on the table, like when you shiver, like it felt like that, but like really bad. And my breathing was real different. And then as the sessions went, it became much more smooth, and I was able to adjust to their energy more, and
Mhm.
um, not have so much of the breathing, and the cadence became more clear and
Well, I
less
guess it's like
staggered.
you're working out, so yeah, it's really difficult for you to adjust your breath and your
Yeah.
moves, and like after so many years of working out, for example, you can go through the workouts much more smoother than with everything, right? And then so with this channeling, um you would get to the point when you don't even channel, but it's like at this state you would just like go.
I would love to. And I've been very close. I know I have done it a couple of times. And like actually I was driving one time, and it scared me because I was like, I don't know if I should do this while I'm driving. Like 'cause I didn't know what was going to happen with, like I was sitting there getting messages, and my wife and I were driving to my buddy's house in Ohio, and like I could feel it starting to come through, like they were going to start talking through me, and I was like driving, I'm like, I don't know if this is safe. I don't want to like trance out and whatever. I don't know how this goes when I'm in the awakened state. So that
Right.
was and I've done it one other time here in my office, when my wife and I were talking, and I've gotten pretty close. But it's interesting because like I can get into those channeling states where they're giving me, images or were, telling me stuff or whatever it is. And it's very clear. I know exactly, it's very clearly that it's coming from them. And as I've started to understand more now, the way they speak, and when you ask a question and they cut you off in the middle of it, obviously that's not yourself, asking and cutting yourself off in the middle of a question. So just little things like that I've learned to look out for, um to be sure whether it's myself or them speaking. And like I still don't trust yes or no answers, because I feel like that's just too, my voice and their voice is too similar, and there's no
Yeah.
like way I can identify for sure that it wasn't me, kind of. So there's still this feeling out process. And what they said too is that it's a learning process for them as well, which I thought it was interesting because we don't really, we just assume once you're out of this dimension, you know everything and are completely evolved and know how to do
Oh,
everything. And
I
it's
get it.
not true
Yes.
at all. They're still learning just as much as we
So
are.
what are they learning?
Same things. I mean, like I said, learning how to communicate. They said this is the first lifetime where we've had communication like this. They've kind of been
Who are
there.
they? That they had the
Ariah.
first time?
Sorry, I call them they, Ariah.
No, it's I say okay. Sorry. Yes, you did mention that.
Yeah.
So Araya had this. This is their first life like that.
No, they've been my guardian angel for all my incarnations, apparently, from what I understand. Um, but this is the first incarnation where we've had this type of communication.
What kind of
Yeah.
other type of communications did you have in the past lives?
I think it's just similar to how it was before I actually started channeling, where I didn't know that it was them. They're in my head all the time. And I'm
They were
sure,
just
like most people, is the same thing, that they are communicating and channeling. They just think it's their own thoughts or whatever, and write it off.
Mhm.
But so I think it was always like that in different lifetimes. And even this lifetime until this past July, it was like that. I had no idea until they told me that I had been channeling my whole life, so not in the
Yeah.
way that I'm telling you, but communicating, they consider that channeling too. So yeah, when I say channeling, I'm just anytime I'm getting communication from them. So I could be in the hypnotic state or in my awake state. It just depends. And it's totally random. That's why the videos, they were daily for quite a while on my channel. And that was because I had so many from the channeling sessions built up, and I could just, go back through and get out all the different messages that they wanted me to get out. But then now it's just kind of like yesterday or Wednesday, I think I made like 4 videos because they just kept coming. Like it was message after message. I was like, all right, let's do it. And then sometimes it's like a week in between where there's no messages. So it's just, and
They give
I
you
have noticed, I'm sorry, go ahead.
they give you a break.
Well, I have noticed that it's so like when I'm doing music or if I'm super focused on stuff, I mean, they're always there when I'm doing music. That's where a lot of music comes from. But they kind of stay out of the way if I'm talking, or especially if I'm talking to somebody who doesn't really get this stuff. They don't want to be like, hey, what are you saying? And the person being like, all right, weirdo. So it's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
they understand, I guess, time and a place type of thing. So if I'm talking to other people who don't really get this type of thing, or if I'm busy doing stuff, they kind of, so, and I keep myself pretty busy most of the time. So
It's very interesting that you're saying that, and it's very good because there are many other channelers and maybe they're just starting. So um someone I know as well, a lady that is channeling, so she was saying, for example, it would be like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just like, hold on, I need to sleep. So you also have to set the boundaries with them too.
yeah,
And it's like so funny, really. And you would think that they're smarter than that, right?
yeah. And I don't know if it's like they don't get it or if they don't care for some people, or I don't really know how that works, but yeah, I think, one thing that I've come to the conclusion of through this whole like enlightening process and everything, and one of the biggest goals through all of this is to have control of your mind. And that means controlling your own thoughts, and that means controlling what thoughts come in from other entities as well, and being able to, you know, most of our goal is to have a clear mind with no thought at all, right? To
Mhm.
just be present, to be right here, right now, and think about things when we want to, not when they want us to. So that's really the key. It's not so much of, I don't think it's, I mean, I think it's a little bit of, setting the boundaries, but it's also setting your own boundaries of, I think of what I want to think of. I don't think of what pops into my head. I push that out, right? So I control my thoughts. If it's something I don't want to think about, you're gone. You're gone. You know what I mean? And that's really where we're headed. That's where people need to be heading. And that's how you get rid of anxiety. That's how you get rid of depression. If you can control your thought process, then you get rid of all these diseases, because that's what those things are. Anxiety is worry of the future. Depression is worry of the past. So if you can live in the now, then you eliminate those two stressors.
That's what I thought you have to do in order to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part
Otherwise,
of
they're
it
not
too.
going to connect with you because that could be probably the problem when you are messing up, right? The messages.
Well, they just told me right now, they were like, that's exactly why they don't connect with us whenever I'm doing stuff, because my mind is so busy doing things, or I'm, so it's not able to be clear and have that open channel connection.
Well, thank you to your guides.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that now that I haven't seen you, because I haven't experienced you really, but couple of times, maybe 2, 3 times, you said, oh, they just told me. But people would always say thank you. Do you
Yeah.
think that?
I thank them, I hope, enough times a day for stuff. I have kind of a ritual that I go through and do my gratitude and all that sort of thing. So
Right.
times
Yes.
a
Well,
day.
and so I wanted to also ask you again, I wouldn't give myself that credit anymore, but before I thought like, oh, I'm getting better. So for example, it happened with my kids, when there's like a situation and I'm like, how do I talk to, I have 2 sons, so I would say him. How do I talk to him about this, right? And then sometimes it happens to me mostly when I am driving because I'm more focused on like just sitting
Mhm.
and driving. And it's so, I mean, with this automatic gear, right? You don't have to really think much.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
just, and in Canada, the highways are just straight, right? I mean, they're not like curvy and I have to, think too much about what I'm doing.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm not careful. But what I'm trying to say is that let's say I would talk to my son, he's 14, so he sits in the front, and um, it's harder to talk to your kids when they're in the back for some reason. I have to look the person in the eye so I can like, glance. And so let's say about some kind of interaction he had with friends, and then or maybe something about what he's thinking about changing soccer clubs or so and so. And then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know what to say. And then it starts coming and I'm like, wow, that was a word of wisdom. And I'm like, how did I get that much better? And then I would see, let's say 777. And I know that, okay, that's not me. And it's really, I'm experiencing myself as just a vessel
Mhm.
or medium or tool, or you want to call it whatever, right?
So you're taking the first step. The first step's awareness. So understanding that that wasn't my own thought, that was there, I'm channeling. And that's what they've told to me plenty of times too, is, you know, I don't know if I want to call it, I'll just call it counseling people because lack of a better term at the moment. But I've just had random people come up to me and I guess they just knew, I don't know, but they just, needed my word or my advice, whatever. And um that's what they just said, the same thing, where you'll just, when you just start saying things and you don't know where it's coming from, but it's the right thing to say, just let it go, let it flow. It's us, channeling through you because we know we can reach you to reach that person. So it's kind of they're using you, in a way, because they
They're
know that
using
they
it, yeah.
can, they know they can get through you to reach them. So be open to it and don't be afraid of, when you're like,
Yeah.
how did I just know that? And it's like, well,
No,
because
it's more like that's magical, right?
yeah,
For me.
it is.
But no,
Yeah.
I'm not really afraid. That's actually probably I'm too
Not
open.
you, I
I
meant
have
whoever this happens to. I know you wouldn't be afraid, but anybody watching, if that's happening to you, don't, let it flow.
these things are really good to point to for sure. Because so for example, I was also asking about channeling a lot for the past maybe month. It accelerated this my curiosity into it.
Yeah.
And so
All good. You're on your way.
well, I think it's kind of natural. It's not like, and I wanted to ask you, so I saw this video this morning. I was just like really glancing quickly, and you had a new message about teachings and
The false
following.
guru.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's very natural. That's what's going to happen to all of us, right? To be able to channel.
Yeah.
But
And they
that's
actually gave
what
me that
we,
message after I talked to you, because you were talking about searching for your teacher or whatever to kind of help you, and how people are taking advantage of those situations, because there are people who, I mean, everybody is, becoming curious to some degree. And there's a lot of people who are doing good, but still sort of taking advantage of those people. And there's a lot of people who are on the other side of it too, who are, misleading and, kind of false prophesizing things as well. So for people to be careful, be aware, try to see through people's intentions. And I understand, everybody's got to pay their bills, everybody's got to eat. So, if this is how you make money and stuff, I totally get that. But the distinguishing factor, I would say, is need. If somebody tells you that you need them, then I would say that's a red flag. My goal is for you to want to learn from me as long as you want to, and then you go do your own thing and go teach other people. That's, I don't want you to need me. Like, I'm not some sort of, necessary in between. Like, you can learn all the things that I've learned on your own if you want to.
Well, on the other hand, if that's what happens to you, that you are in need and the person is there, maybe that's what the lesson is for you
Yeah.
to learn that, you know what, because you were so needy, you were absolutely so dependable. So you did get the bad guy.
Oh yeah. Well, and the other part
In
of that too is,
quotations, the bad guy. Sorry, I just want to finish that.
oh, sorry.
Would, no, it's okay. It's just like, how would I finish this thought? No, it's okay. Go ahead.
um, yeah, I was just, what was I gonna say? The yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
So
I didn't
let's
mean to
say
cut
I
you
would really, really want it, need it because I feel like I can't live without it, right? So I
Yeah.
would ask you to teach me, and you would be like, yes, okay, so you need to pay your bills, and you see me as a needy person, so you would take me as you are going to teach me, and
Yeah.
you feel yourself as like kind of not as a guide, but more as a opportunity. So you would be the opportunist.
Yeah. And like I said,
And then
I
because I
think there's
keep
good and bad
paying
in that.
you and needing you, I'm like hooked on you, right? I can't do it without you.
Yeah.
That's when I need the lesson to understand. But let's say if I ask you, can you please help me, like guide me or teach me, right? And you would, but then you would tell me, just, but you have to like try yourself and just go. And you keep pushing me because you feel that I'm ready, or not that you feel I'm ready, but somehow it's just not okay for me to be always coming to you, right? And so that would be the case where
Yeah.
you don't, sure, you're open to help and you're open to guide someone, but it's not like, as you said in that message, you kind of create a space where you tell the person you have to keep coming back, because without me you're not going to really progress or even get there
Yeah.
or ever learn, and so on.
Right. That's what you gotta look out for. And I'm not saying that people don't need, and I remember what I was gonna say. So if you believe that you need somebody, then you're gonna need somebody, right? So it's kind of that dog chasing its tail thing. But what I mean by need, you as the person seeking somebody, you may need somebody's help, and you may believe that, so it may be true, right? What I'm saying is, if I am the helper and I say you need me, otherwise you're not going to ascend or you're not going to progress, that's the red flag. That's what you should say. Okay, this is not my goal. For you coming to need me is for you not to need me anymore. Right?
Right.
Is to turn you into somebody who somebody else needs, that you can help them not need them, you not need you anymore, if that makes sense. So that's my goal. My goal is to have people not need me and go be people that other people need. So
Well, and
that,
then also because
I'll just say that's the difference, I would say.
it is, and it's also put in different words, right? So it's good because your message, my message, somebody else's message about how to find a guru or a teacher and how to be guided, it always resonates differently from other people, right? So we can
Right.
all teach the same thing, but different people would kind of like absorb, and
Absolutely.
I don't know how to say it. Yeah, I could read the same book about, I could read different books about the same concept, but this either writer or the person doesn't explain it that way. And so it's the same with teachers, right?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
another talk I had, or part of the talk was also that, okay, I lost my thought right now, was basically that, oh yeah, so like you need help or a therapy, and it could be, you know, with the best intentions, you just don't click with that person,
Right.
and that's okay. So don't be discouraged. Go get the same done, but maybe from other person. Is
Exactly.
for whatever reason, it could be the vibrations, it could be the fit,
Yeah.
and what's behind the fit. I don't know, many different characteristics why you fit more with that person than with that. And so The same goes for teachers in schools, right? So math
Absolutely.
was like my pain.
Yeah.
And I would go with different teacher doing the same math problem, and I would be like, so much easier, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a few different factors. I mean, we could go down to like a vibrational level where people just vibe better with other people, and start there. But I think that there's ways that people explain things where people understand it better. I think that there's just a general aura about people at times that is more comforting and more, accepting. And some people just come off, differently. Or I know sometimes I come off as very blunt and brash, and some people really appreciate it and other people don't. So it's, I don't care either way. I'm going to be who I am and do it my way. And I know that people who know me know I'm coming from a good place. So it's not like I'm trying to just be a dick about it. I don't sugarcoat things. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think you need to hear, and no
Transparency,
fluff around it. Huh?
transparency, we call it.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, some people think that, you know, they're overweight and they want you to tell them some fluff story about how they can eat chocolate every day and still do. And it's like, dude, you eat too much, stop eating so much and exercise. Like that's what it is right there. There's no other way around it,
You can just
so
tell them you're not ready.
yeah. And so, but there's people who want to hear the fluff story and how this is so it's like, I'm not your guy then, I'm not the one to tell you what. So, but find somebody who is. That's fine.
Something that came through was like my higher self sugarcoats me too, but it's because they're so loving.
Yeah.
And let's say what I got was okay, so why do I have this, or what should I do? Why it's whatever you're not satisfied with, right? Okay, well, blah 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 blah, right? But um it's so sweetly put, and when I think about it, some other person would just do a shadow work on me. Why it doesn't work? Because maybe your beliefs, or like, open your eyes, can't you freaking see that?
Yeah.
But my higher self would never talk to me like that. They're so, oh, he is, she is, I don't know, it is so sweet with me. So
Really?
sometimes I
Mine's a
just
dick.
don't really no, I do receive it, but it's different.
Really? Yeah,
Well,
that's
because
interesting because
I
I
would
get
have to
like,
probably tell you something specific in order to get the point. But go
I know
ahead.
exactly what you're saying because mine's like the opposite of that. I have a very rude higher self that makes me uncomfortable if I don't do things sometimes.
That's
Or
awesome. So is it then what your essence is and what is my essence as well is like, okay, so another thing is someone else was like that too. So she's a psychic, she's a channeler, and before I ever started believing that I could be able to do that as well, right? So I asked them to channel something for me, and um it's the same thing. It's like such a sweet way to put things, these words that you leave and you're like flying in seventh heaven, right? But maybe if I would ask you to channel, I would get it like really directly, and that would be the same. I mean, let's say I want answers to the same questions, but I would get from these two higher selves, yours and hers, different language, right? And I would receive it differently.
well, I think what is popping up to me when you're saying that is they're going to talk to you the way that you respond best. So me, when they call me out, like if I'm chopping wood and I don't get through it the first time, they're like, oh, nice whack, pussy, something like that. And it just like, all right, I'll get it. You know what I mean? So they know how to kind of trigger you, I guess, to get you the best out of you is the way I take it, because it's not like they're just, and I have been caught up in those thought loops where it's, totally negative stuff, but it's more motivating and just not like and it's everybody's perception too, because somebody might hear the things in my head and be like, oh my God, but to me, it's just like, oh, that's how I talk to myself to get motivated, I guess, or whatever. So, and
Yes, that's why I was wondering if it's your essence and my essence and everybody else's essence, right? So
yeah,
in let's say in reality, for example, if I have my parents or somebody older, some authority talk to me harsher way, I would totally get traumatized. That's why my higher self doesn't talk to me the way
Right.
that, you know, you get talked to, because
Yeah.
I would get traumatized from the kind
Yeah.
of talk.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
how it works for me. And it's also, it translates to our kids. Like I have, again, two sons, completely different energies. And if I say the same thing to my younger son, he would cry. But my
Yeah.
older son needs that.
Right.
Exactly. Because he wouldn't, for him, it would be just like, she said nothing.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things that, and it's interesting because of how I look back on my past now and see how everything has kind of set me up for this journey, and how, like I coached for a lot of years, and, learning through coaching that, especially how the school system is just awful. It's everything is one size fits all. Everybody's the same. And like
Yeah.
coaching and motivating and all these things are such an individual, person by person, type of thing. And it's just like what we were just talking about with our, our higher selves motivating us. Like I can get, the way they talk to me, if they talk to you like that, it might make you cry. I don't know, or, make you feel bad. Like, but it motivates me, so it's like, I think it's the exact same thing with, kids or whoever you're coaching or whatever it is, with leadership in general is, figuring out the best way to lead the individuals that you're tasked with leading, not a one size fits all approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the same thing goes for the who do you vibe with, is you have a course or you have a group of people that you are creating as a meditation group or whatever. And once we're going to have these centers, right, it can be yoga even, right? So why do you fit more with that person? Because that's what your vibes are more like. So you need the kind of more nurturing, sweeter approach. Somebody needs more of the military, which is also cool. I need it at times, but not maybe every time.
And like I said, with me, I'm not gonna, if I see that that doesn't work for you, I'm not going to use that approach with you, so it's
Yeah, but
a
you
case
didn't
by
have to
case.
adjust yourself. You need to stay yourself. You need to.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if I'm coaching you, if you're coming to me for information, I'm going to tell you how it is, and whatever comes through. I'm not rude about it or anything like
No, no,
that, but I'm
no.
also not a sugarcoating person. I'm going to tell you exactly in the least amount of words that I have to say.
Yeah, but I mean, we never would be disrespectful. It's just
No.
it can be the tone of the voice. Somebody just
Yeah.
prefers female, somebody just prefers male, somebody prefers,
Oh, for sure. And that's exactly why
these
Araya comes through.
human characteristics or factors more
Yeah, and
than.
that's why Araya, I call them they, because that's exactly what they told me in one of the first sessions I did with them. Is after we were done with the session, I got the energy that I felt was female, and the energy that the person who was doing you know, the interview, I guess you would call it, felt masculine. And so we asked about it the next time, and they said it's whatever, however you receive the message best, that's the form that we come in. So it's absolutely right. And that's why you can tell your kids 700 times, and then, your brother-in-law or somebody comes and tells them, and they're like, oh, now I get it. And it's like,
Yes.
it's just that different voice, that, and it's the same thing in all of this. And I believe that, yeah, like you said, sometimes it's a male's voice that's better, sometimes it's a female's voice that's better, and it really just depends. And I
Mhm.
think that there's, as much as there is to do with the male female type of thing, I think confidence and other things play a big part of it. Especially the more emotionally aware people are, and they can see through, and read body language and those sort of things, and they can kind of pick up on insecurities where they may take that as not knowing the full truth, when really you're just maybe insecure about talking it. So there's a lot of factors, I think, that
Right.
play into things.
Well, because once you are, I don't know, vibing higher, your channels open more. And so you're able to attune to the person, not even knowing the person. The person comes to you the very first time in your life, you see them and you can just scan them. You exactly know what kind of approach they need.
Yeah.
But not everybody has this attunement, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
and
that's what.
that's sort of a long, I mean, I wouldn't say that that was like, you know, as soon as I started channeling, I think that was a longer process through, like I said, coaching and learning how to read individuals and body language. And, there's a lot to communication besides the way somebody says something or the words that come out of their mouth. There's so much, the facial expressions and the body language and, different things that you can pick up on. And, like I said, I think the more in tune that people are with those things, they can pick up on people who have insecurities, even if they are saying the information that's 100%, correct or whatever. I think that someone may not vibe with them as well, just because they're picking up on those certain things.
Mhm. Well, I guess I just know why it came to me, but you're a doctor and you need to disclose some kind of uncomfortable situation about their serious health problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's tough, really. Or how do you gonna announce somebody that your family member died, right? So
Yeah.
I would not be able to do those things, for example.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not that I want to, but if I have to, I would have to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of those things too, where it's, so many things are uncomfortable, but a lot of times I feel like those uncomfortable things show up for a reason and we're supposed to face them, because I feel
It's
like,
a wild card.
yeah. Well, Jim Morrison, I'm going to mess up the quote, but he said something to the effect of, you know, fear is only there until you face it. Once you face your fear, then it's gone. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. So it's kind of one of those things that I think life presents you a lot of these different fears and things. And then once you do them and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad, because you have this scenario built up in your head or whatever happens. And another reason not to have thoughts in your head when you don't want them, to have a clear mind, and then you don't have worry and you don't have anxiety about what might happen because you're not thinking about that.
Mhm. I don't know why I can't down to this parenting for me. How is it for you? Um, I would not know how to approach people until I had kids. So because of that, I started to be so much more, I don't know, different person basically, right? That changed me a lot, basically.
Having kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure a lot of people have said the same thing. I don't know. I think everybody's different. I think it just depends on the interactions that you have. What changed me a lot was working with kids with autism. Definitely changed my perspective a lot on the world, and coaching for sure. Interacting with, and even just the military, when I was younger, interacting with so many different groups, social groups, and different, it'd be hilarious because during the day we'd all look the same. We'd all have a shaved head and our, camo on, whatever. And then we'd go out
The
to the
same
bar at
uniform.
night. Yeah. And then you go out to the bar at night and you're hanging out with a goth kid and someone who's a skater and someone who's a cowboy, and everybody's hanging out together. But it's like, we didn't even know that they dress like that or were like that because, so it kind of makes you blinded to, in a good way, the differences in society, and just allows you to kind of say, hey, we got along fine. We didn't even know we were different until we got dressed and went out, and then, so I think
Mhm.
that goes a long way for, people to kind of blend in and see how so many people, I believe, grow up in a certain way, especially if they grew up in a small town or if they never leave where they grew up and they don't travel and experience other cultures, and they just assume that everybody grows up the same way that they did. And, I was the same way. I just, and then you start hearing about, like, wait, there was people who didn't have food to eat. There's people that didn't have this, and you're like, what? And it just kind of, it's a culture shock almost, but it opens your eyes to how different the world is and how diverse, and how everything's not how you grew up. And, so what you think you may know from growing up where you grew up is probably not accurate for most places.
We cannot go without it, right? We have to grow up certain way. So it is what it is. And
Yeah.
that's what the magic of life too, that yeah, that's why you came here to be, I don't know, what's the best word to say that? Like washing off all of those conditionings,
Yeah.
right?
Well, from what I understand, and this is just, stuff that I've picked up through channeling and whatnot, but so Earth, similar to like the United States, how the United States is kind of the melting pot of, Earth, where all the different races and religions
Oh, the
and all the
multiculturalism and so,
yeah.
you mean? Okay.
From what I understand, Earth was kind of that for the universe, that
Right.
it was supposed to kind of get all these races together so that they could evolve and realize more of their similarities than their differences, I guess, basically what we're going through now. But I think that was the one of the original intentions of Earth, and having all these different alien races splicing their DNA with the hominoids and whatnot. So
Hmm. I think it happened all throughout. Yeah. Not just, I don't know, now, but for sure. As in our previous video, we talked about, we don't even know the entire history of planet, right?
oh yeah.
So the merging of all kinds of, and I don't know, it's just respect, I guess. That's how the universe wants to expand.
Well, and the other thing that I think is interesting, and I don't know the answers to these questions, but so as we were talking about before, with how all things are happening at one time, everything is happening now, the past, present, future. So all timelines are happening right now. So if we die and we choose to reincarnate in the past, right now, the past, it's going to be a different history than what we've learned about, because it's going to be a different playing out of that history. So everything is kind of always changing. So history is kind of what our history is right now. In the next lifetime, it may be different, or it's probably changing as we speak, and we don't even realize it because that stuff is happening as we speak. So it's just kind of it's very hard to kind of wrap your mind around, but thinking of all the different possibilities, and how they even say with time travel, that if you went back in time and interacted with your previous self, it wouldn't have that like butterfly effect or whatever that people think, because it's actually an entirely different timeline altogether. It doesn't affect, the way we think it does. So it's just interesting how all that stuff, plays together, and how, history just kind of has to be taken with like a grain of salt in a way. You try to learn the lessons as best you can, but understanding that, it's literally probably changing on a daily basis.
It gets overwhelming. That's why it's the
Yeah.
best to stay now.
Mhm.
Goodness, right?
Yeah. And that was one of the best pieces of advice that they gave me, because I'm such an analytical person, and, trying to make everything logical and understand things. And they were like, one, it doesn't have to make sense to you. That's not part of the rules. Like, we don't have to. They're like, two illogical things happen, and you have to be able to understand that. And three, be okay with not knowing. Like, so those three things hopefully help people to, when you start thinking about these paradoxes, or these, like, multiple timelines, and going back in history and all these, or the future, and it's just starts to make the brain hurt a little bit. So, just,
Yeah.
we don't have to know everything.
As you speak, so much is going through me. So I'm very expressive person, so I guess you can tell from my face. It's to surrender. That's really hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's been my message for a while
Really.
now. Oh yeah. The trust and just kind of release. I mean, yeah, it's been quite the trusting process for sure. I'm still waiting for that next opportunity to arise, but I know it's coming. I feel I feel it. I understand it. I get, but it's just kind of that, that trust, it's the unknown that's in front of us, but so.
It's tricky for sure, but it's the most, I don't know, peaceful thing. Just, you know what? Fuck
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, and it's hard, but it's so relieving in a lot of ways once you can achieve that, because like I said, depression and anxiety are either you're thinking about the future or the past. So you can alleviate a lot of those by being present.
Mhm. Oh, and so what would be your take on, let's say, um, if you get to a certain point of either it's anxiety or just overwhelming in that moment, right? Sure, Om is really good to chant for a while until you settle down, or just, I don't know, have a joint or some other kind of, how would I call them? Um, Plants or anything. I don't really have anything that comes to my mind right now, but blue lotus would be another plant I've heard you can smoke, or I don't know, have oil from it or something.
Hmm.
What else is there? I wouldn't say alcohol and drugs, because, well, I guess drugs, right, are the toxic ones, but they're more natural ones where you can just like tune out.
Yeah.
That helps you too.
Yeah, like, well, look, alcohol is definitely something that lowers your vibration. Smoking, cannabis is something that raises your vibration. So you can see why one's legal
And
and one's
that's the
illegal.
contradiction between what you say. I can't say you're wrong, but I also heard that a lot from, I'm not sure. I don't want to call them higher vibrational people, because how do I say that you're a low vibrational person? But it's
Just
like,
regular
and it doesn't
person.
matter. But then also we've heard from those teachers and gurus who are, let's say, leading these retreats, where they teach people to meditate and take them through the entire ascension process in like 30 days or even 3 months, right? So it's not just a retreat for like a weekend.
Mhm.
It's a longer one. And they would end up, opening all the channels going through the Kundalini awakening, right? And they are strictly against, don't ever be on cannabis, right? So I'm like, I I have to have my own truth. Sure. Now I know that. But what do you think is your take on that?
I think that if they believe that it doesn't help them, that it won't help them. So I think it's down to the individual. If you believe that it helps you, then it'll help you. If you believe that it hinders you, then it'll hinder you. And I think everybody's body chemistry is different, so that makes it a fact. Everybody's unique and individual. I don't say that anything is one size fits all. Some people might get great results. I smoke cannabis all day, every day, and I don't have any issues with it. And other people smoke it and they go crazy, and it's not for them. So I think everything is the same. I think I've met people who were heroin addicts that were totally functional for 30 years and did their work every day. And so I believe that everything is completely unique and individualized. I don't think, other than maybe like drinking water and getting sunlight, those are pretty universal. But other than that, I don't know that there's very much, one size fits all for everybody. I mean, food, everything. That's one thing I see so many people, and I'll just make this PSA real quick. Like, veganism is such a huge thing in the spiritual community, and you got to understand, what is half of vegan food? It is processed nonsense. So you're not being healthy by eating processed food. Is the worst food that you can eat. It is the most low vibrational food that you can eat. So
Can you
being
give us an
vegan,
example of what kind of processed vegan food you mean? Not just
anything.
example. I mean,
I don't
I
eat vegan food. I just know that's what obviously if you're eating fruits and vegetables and fresh stuff like that, you're fine. But I know there's a lot of, like the, what are the veggie burgers and things like that, where it's all just 100% processed, chemicals and different things like that stuff is terrible for you. And so understand that, I get why people want to be a vegan to a large degree. I'm a huge animal lover myself, but I've channeled about food and I've asked about being a vegetarian or whether it's okay to eat animals. And the answers that I've received, I don't have a problem with it anymore. Um, and they've told me all food is energy. And that's what it boils down to. It's all energy. And also, when you have kind of a higher understanding of how the earth works, then you understand that we plan our lives to a degree before we incarnate, meaning that so do animals, and animals know what animals go through on this planet. So they chose to incarnate to live and learn that perspective. So while I've been to slaughterhouses, when I used to do pest control, I had to go to a slaughterhouse one time and I told them I'd quit my job because I never would go back there again in my life. And I still
wow.
eat meat. So, I see both sides of it. I wish it was a lot more humane, if that even is a real thing as far as when it comes to killing things. But um you know I think that what we need to get back to is more like how the Native Americans, or native people in general, with that appreciation of the land and being grateful for that animal who sacrificed its life to feed you and your family and that sort of thing. And I think when we get back to more of that and showing that gratitude, then I don't think that there's as much a problem with killing animals. But I will say also that we are programmed to eat way more food than we ever needed to in our entire lives. So, we could cut back on a lot of issues if we just reprogrammed our body through fasting and not, again, one size does not fit all, but so many people eat because they're programmed rather than because they're hungry.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad that you're saying that for sure, because going back to cannabis, I had so many different experiences. And I guess it depends on also at what point in life you are. So sometimes it was messing with me, and I definitely felt like, oh my gosh, if I would smoke, I won't be functioning at all. Right. And at some point when I smoked, I get the best downloads.
Yeah. And that's what I say. I mean, it's all, unique because Some people I've smoked, I've been around who smoke and they get entirely paranoid and they're completely useless. They can't function properly. And I wouldn't say I can't function properly, but like when I drink, I'm not doing anything productive. I'm not going to do any
Yeah.
music or anything that I would have to think or, anything like that. When I smoke, I can do anything and I do it better usually. So that's why I say for me, it works. For you, it may not work. I don't know. That's for you to decide, not for me. But I don't think that we should have these prohibitions just because one person thinks this way or another. I don't think any drugs or anything should be illegal. I think that people should figure things out for their own if they want to experiment things and experience things and go for it.
It's only to be available, right? So instead of getting it under the cover, maybe mixed with some kind of synthetical stuff, right? So it should be more transparent. I would use this word, and available and kind of regulated too. I don't know, but you can go into that if you want.
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I think that it is more dangerous to try to be oblivious to the fact that these things still happen regardless if there's laws against them or not. People still do them. So how do you get them? Through some nefarious way, through something that's not which cannabis, it's like it's a plant, it's grown, there's not a whole lot. I mean, I guess you could spray stuff on it, something like that, but there's not a whole lot you could do to alter it. But these other chemically made drugs or things like that, who knows what's in them, who knows what they're cut with or whatever else. So
Well,
that's
I
when it
mean,
gets
even
scary.
cannabis is sometimes mixed. You get that from someone, right? Either it's a candy or it's a joint, but oh, sorry, I didn't tell you it's mixed with this kind of tobacco. Well, I didn't want to smoke tobacco because I
Yeah,
can't. I mean, oh, that's just like gross to me. I can't smell it, right? It bothers me and so on.
yeah,
But there's another kind of tobacco that they actually do use in rituals, right? And
yeah,
ceremonies. Yeah. So go
yeah.
ahead
And that's why
if
I
you
said,
have some other ideas about it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I've like I've said before, in these buildings, they talked about plant medicine ceremonies. I'm assuming ayahuasca and, mushrooms and things like that, that will be available to do. But, it's guided, it's with, where the stuff is safe and things like that, where, there's always that risk. Like you said, you just, you're not 100% sure, where the stuff came from or what's on it or whatever else.
Some
So
kind of cornerstone, corner
yeah,
store.
yeah. So, having, like you said, where it's safer and people who are doing it because they care and want to. And that's what I think a lot of the, like, especially the medical cannabis field and stuff like that, which is where I get mine. Um, but I think that there's people in that industry who love what they do and really care about, making it the best and the purest and all these different things. And I think that that would become more of a thing with other things also, if it was allowed to be and not, stifled. But like I think that I think there's great value in plant medicine if it's for you, I guess. I mean, because I have seen people freak out on plant medicines before. I've seen, bad trips and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure at this point that a bad trip is you coming face to face with things that you're not really ready to accept about yourself. And so I think that you have to be in a certain mind frame and certain mindset to do those things and understand what's going to happen to you and understand what is happening to you. And if you're ready to do that, then they can be great and, help your journey a lot. And if you're not ready, I think it can scare you and give you a bad few hours of your life. So I don't know. That's why I don't like to say that anything is, going to work for everybody or anybody else besides myself. All I can speak for is myself. I'm the only one that I know for sure it does or doesn't work for.
Right. I don't know. I think that's again, you do or you don't listen to yourself, because if you do, you're again higher self, I guess. There's something would tell you not yet, it's not your time. It's just like, and sometimes things are better than us, so they are preventing us. Let's say your car breaks down, you just can't get there on time and
Right.
you missed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're the magics. And then okay, if you're that stubborn, you want to do this ceremony, you're not ready, enjoy it. Not a good trip.
Yeah.
But yes, it's usually among teenagers, right? They like to get into stuff too soon. And for some teenagers, I mean, if they're growing up in the kind of environment with the kind of family, and again, I'm more of a city person, though I love nature, but I'm not native. I didn't grow up in like kind of I don't know, how would I call it? Somewhere in north of Ontario, we have only woods, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And you live with the complete, I don't know, um, attunement with nature, and you get the water from that stream, and you sleep on the ground and so on. No, I'm like, I have beds and
yeah,
furniture and so on, just like
yeah.
you. So I'm not completely, I don't know, a nature girl, right? Or nature person. So I wouldn't do that when I was young, right? I had to wait until I'm in my 30s. Maybe some things I'm going to have to wait until I'm in my 60s, because I got there this way through
Right.
these two, the life kind of I live, it's too modern, right? But yes, I mean, if you're growing up, so they're saying kids in tribes, in some South American tribes, they are being given the chili peppers in like a drops of it into their eyes, because that's supposed to do something. I'm not sure if like open their,
I've heard of that too. I don't know what it does
yeah,
though, but
I,
yeah, I've heard of that.
and for them it's normal, because that's the entire environment they're growing up with, right?
Right. Well, and I think that there's this distinction too that should be made with, a lot of these drugs and, or plant medicines or whatever else. Like the first time I did mushrooms was not to get enlightened. I wanted to get high with my friends. So, and I think that's a lot of people's intention when they do things the first time. It's not to become more enlightened. So I think your intention also plays a factor in, and I had a great time. It was fun. I I would say that I learned things that I wasn't ready to learn yet. I didn't understand them until maybe, you know, recently. And I did that, I don't even know, 10, 12 years ago, longer than that, maybe. But yeah,
So you still
15.
got the messages, but they didn't really mean anything to you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they didn't really touch you in a bad way. It was just fun.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some trips that were not so fun, but and looking back on them, well, one of them was just completely miserable. But um
And
like
can
the
you talk about that? Like, why did that happen? Was it your frame of mind? Was it the part of your life that you were going through something? You don't have to
well, I think it
say
was all of
specifically
it.
what it is, but
I was in the army still, and I hated my life when I was in the army, and that was kind of my one of my escapes from reality was to do mushrooms every once in a while. And I had done,
let's see.
I want to say like 3.5 grams on like a Friday, for example, or no, maybe it was Friday, I don't know. And then I did 7 grams like a couple days later, and I had to
Oh,
work the next day, in the army. And I just kind of, for anybody who's done mushrooms, you kind of like ascend, and where it's like, oh, it's starting, and then it really kicks in.
yeah.
I was in that like ascent stage where it was like, oh, I'm like, and I just kind of got stuck for like 6 hours. And then I was just going crazy because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the army and I got to work tomorrow and I'm stuck on this. I'm never going to come to. So it just was like
Mm.
this whole, so yeah, that time was definitely miserable. The other time I did it, that it was kind of miserable, but it was very good for me. I also did 7 grams again and maybe a little bit more. And
A
like I
lot,
was
by the
sitting
way.
there, huh?
That's a lot, by the way.
Yeah. So it's called a heroic dose. Terrence McKenna, I guess, coined the phrase, but when you do that, I think it's 7 grams is the heroic dose. You lose all sense of reality and self and ego and all that stuff. Like you're completely, I was staring at the clock for like 4 hours and it didn't change 1 minute. So it was, it was a very different experience, but I
So
kind of
is
had
it the
this
kind
like,
of, is
go
it the
ahead.
kind of mushroom? Because there are more kinds. So
I have no idea
that
what
would
kind it was.
be it, or because you took that much,
I
or
think it was the amount. Yeah.
the amount?
I
Okay.
mean, maybe the combination. I don't know what kind it was. I couldn't tell you. I know I didn't even know there was different kinds until recently. So I thought it
Oh,
was
I
all.
thought that's what you said. There was a kind, hero something.
What? Oh, no, no. Heroic dose. That's the amount.
What is hero dose? I know
Heroic.
dose. Heroic dose. Sorry,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't hear that.
Heroic
Okay.
dose is 7 grams of mushrooms.
That's what they call it, actually.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
what
see.
Terrence McKenna, he was like a psychonaut, they call him or whatever. But he coined the phrase, I believe, heroic dose because it takes you to you see, like I had a very out of body third person experience where I was cracking up laughing about how we pay to live on Earth and how it's ridiculous, and just kind of the whole um just seeing things. They showed me how the universe works and how it's kind of this ever evolving, like how a flower is, that it expands and then it collapses on itself and then it expands and then it collapses. So the Big Bang is kind of all part of the, all these things that, where it's like the let there be light and the Big Bang. And it's like, isn't that the same thing? So we get caught up on all these terms and phrases when it's really all the same things are happening. But yeah, so it was, I completely lost all sense of identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. Like I really was completely lost for a little while there. But then coming down and having those realizations and having that out of body third, person perspective on everything. And it really changed my life a lot, I believe. And that was quite a few years ago, I guess, probably 5 or 6 years ago. But I've done mushrooms a ton of times. But that was probably my most intense, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Spiritually intense, I guess. Other times it was like, oh, this is fun. I'm seeing things and whatever. But like I was more spiritually in tune at that time. I knew kind of what I was doing and getting into, and more my focus and intent, instead of just, oh, I just want to get high and forget about reality for a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, you want to get something out of it, so it's better to be. And so do you think that your essence is more of a serious person, or are you a funny person?
I think that would probably depend on who you ask, because I think I'm hilarious, but other people sometimes,
Well, because
some people find it very hard to understand when because I'm pretty good poker face. So sometimes people don't even know that I'm joking. And so it's, if you know me, you know me. If not, I guess I could probably come off as very serious, I suppose. But I think I'm kind of balanced. I think it just depends on.
of course, like in regular life, it's good to be balanced. But
Yeah.
why I ask is because for me, the mushrooms showed me the core essence of me. And I understand when you're on cannabis, you can be laughing, right? Because that was the very first description of, okay, so what if I smoke this? What it's gonna do? Oh, you're gonna laugh a lot, right?
Mm.
But it wasn't always the case. Maybe that's the same thing with all kinds of these plants medicine, right? Because you do have trips, so it does show you something. But it also taught me, I don't know if I can call it that way, that I was laughing a lot too, and I was laughing at the same thing. Like, this is just a jungle what we created, right?
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous, and we comply with so many things. And
Yeah.
anyway, so it that's my question. Is it always gonna make you laugh? No, but does it bring out the core sense of you?
I see what you're saying with that. I don't know if it's the core
So, for
essence
example,
of you, but I think I'm
you
sorry.
take your life not as seriously. You laugh at it, right? So let's say at these paradoxes, or you laugh at,
But I
okay,
think that's
so
part of your evolution, though. I think it's part of your perception too. Are you able to, or are you going to look at it and be like, oh, my life is a catastrophe. Oh, I'm a horrible person. Oh, I'm this, and start to, pile on yourself? Or can you kind of detach from it and just be objective about it? I think is really the key to that, because I got this bug flying in my face. Sorry. I don't know where it came from.
okay. I saw it
So
coming,
yeah,
like
I
a big
know.
one.
Well, it's funny, and not to get too sidetracked here, but ever since I got the holy fire and I do the Reiki and stuff, like animals, bugs, everything just is like magnetized towards me. Like my dog won't leave my hip. Like it's I mean it's cool, but it's annoying at the same time. So um
Yeah, they're attracted to your energies.
yeah, yeah. Which, it's cool with some animals, but bugs not so much. um I forget what we were talking about before
So we
that.
were talking about, does it bring out the core sense of you?
Oh, so I think, like I said, I think it can, but I think it's kind of, so yeah, yes. And so how do I say this? It's going to bring out whatever it needs to bring out. And then the way you react to that is going to kind of determine where you are too. So it's kind of showing you,
Very
it's
well
kind of
put.
exposing you from different angles, right? So it's
Mhm.
exposing that dark thing that you don't want to face, but then it's also exposing how do you react to that dark thing you don't want to face. Are you going to say, okay, I get it, and accept it and move on? Or are you going to break down and cry and say, I'm a terrible person, blah, 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 So I think it exposes both sides of that, kind of coin.
What also I can add is, do you allow yourself to break down and laugh at this, right?
Yeah.
Because a person that I was doing it with, the most I had 3 grams, and I allowed myself to, I don't know, just whatever tickled my fancy at that point, and at that point, and at that point. So let's say I was so hungry at the end of this one event, and we went to McDonald's, and I really wanted McDonald's fries. Not the best food, but I really craved it. So
Right.
in that McDonald's, I just broke in laugh. I was laughing so crazy, but did I care? No. Did I
Right.
hurt someone? No. Would they have to call police? No. I just like started laughing. And so I just went to this corner and started laughing to myself, right? I wasn't crazy going around like, ha ha ha, right? Because I knew I had to laugh for myself, basically. I just couldn't stop it, right? But I wasn't trying to, sometimes you would have, how would I call them? Sometimes maybe homeless people, they would be on meth or something, and then they just like have this certain behavior, right? And
Mm.
then they go screaming, they go shouting and laughing, whatever. It wasn't that, but the person that was with me was like ashamed of my behavior, right?
Mm.
Because they didn't allow themselves to maybe, how do you call this, when you restrict yourself too much, you put so much limitations on you, you don't let yourself to, let's say, enjoy fully. Well, I'm
Right.
not like that, and I came across so many, especially men, who would entire my life, I have to look back and I'm facing this kind of belief, right, where I am being looked at certain way because I am not serious enough, right? And
Mm.
they want to be serious, or I don't know how would I call it, but yeah.
Yeah.
And they just like, I'm annoying to them or something, right? Because I don't take things seriously.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, if you're talking about in those terms, I definitely would be more the person who doesn't take things too seriously most of the time, because I see life for what it is, and it's like we're floating on a rock in the middle of the galaxy, and you're sitting here worried about X, Y, or Z that really is inconsequential in the whole. But so many people can't take that perspective. So I understand, and I understand why people do take things seriously, and I think there are things that you do need to take seriously, but I also think that if you can't find the humor in everything, then you're going to be a miserable person. So, even if it's something tragic and terrible, like you can still joke about it. Like, why not? Why can't you make yourself try to make a bad situation a little bit better? Like, I don't understand people's thought process in that regard. There's enough low vibrations going on out there. We can try to spice it up a little bit.
exactly, right. Yes. And that's even during COVID, it was like, oh, let's have fun. And for some people, I understand it was the worst time of their life.
Because they made it that way.
Well, but sometimes, um, people lost jobs, so it's not like it was their doing, but it's,
Yeah,
um,
but you also, everything is the way you look at it, right?
I
So if
understand.
you lost a job that didn't want you there because that you wouldn't be forced to take some experimental drug, then do you really want that job? Do you really want to work for people like that? And I understand that that's hard for people. And I lost my job, so don't think that I'm speaking from someplace that, I don't know what I'm talking about here. But do you want to work for people that don't want you there? Do you want to work for people that are more concerned about some draconian tyranny than they are about your well-being and what kind of person you are and your thoughts and personal opinions on things? Like, I
No,
don't.
what I meant was, let's say I had the job during COVID, right? So I had constant intake of like, or supply of money, for example, right?
Mhm.
And things to do and so on and so on. But some people were scared of like, what now? Because they told me they are not going to open up the store or the business or something, right? So I have to sit down at home. I don't want to. I want to have something else going on. So that's what I meant.
No, I know I agree with you. I'm just saying that too is a matter of perspective, because You could look
Because
at it from, I have nothing to do and I don't know what to do with myself, or now you have time to do all of those things that you've wanted to do, but we're too busy to. So it's all how you look at it and how you want to make what you want to make out of it. So yeah, I get that there's heartbreak. People lost businesses, people lost their jobs, people lost their lives. I understand all of that. But I also understand that you could have sat there for a year locked up saying how woe is me, or you could have started a new business, or you could have started a new hobby or found a new activity that you enjoy and spent your time doing that. That's more what I mean. You can choose to sit there and look at it from whatever perspective you want, but you had a year to sit there and kind of do nothing or do a lot, and that's, I released 2 albums and did, a whole bunch of stuff. So it's like you can sit there and say, I lost this and I lost that, or I gained this and I gained that. It's your choice. So you had plenty of time to do a lot of different things. If you sat there and wasted it watching the news, that's your fault.
oh my gosh, can you imagine? I can't, but probably that's what happened to some.
Yeah. And I mean, what COVID was, and there's obviously more layers to this, but the opportunity that the light saw in COVID was for everybody to sit down and take a deep breath and evaluate this whole existence and say, what the fuck are we doing here? Is this really what we came here to do? Is this really, we're supposed to work 75% of our day or 60%, whatever it is, and then come home and eat terrible food and watch TV and go to sleep until we die and pay taxes? Like, that's what we're here to do? I don't think so. And that's what COVID was. And if you didn't see it as that opportunity, then you missed out. And if you sat there and wallowed in your sorrow and said, oh, woe is me, and because whatever your circumstances are, there have been people who've had it worse and there have been people who've had it better, and both of them could have went in either direction, right? So the person who had it worse could have made their life better, and the person who had it nice could have made their life worse. It's all your choices and your perspective on how you want to react to things. So if you chose to sit there and be miserable and say, I'm terrified of this disease that has killed the same amount of people that the flu kills every year, that's your choice. But if you just sat there and said, okay, now I have time to do things that I want to do, and I rebuilt my
Like,
garage or did
finally.
something, finding a new way to create income, finding a new way to start a business online where you can work from home. There's all of these different opportunities that are available to people. You chose what you wanted to do. And that was my point with that. I get that a lot of people went through some shit, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but your
I
reaction
know.
to it is what life is.
It sometimes takes time because at first it's shocking. So for sure, it's like
Mhm.
tsunami, right? And then you just start cleaning up after that uh, shock, and it's like a uninvited trip, psychedelic trip.
Yeah. But like one of the biggest things for me that I came to the realization through this whole thing, it sucked. I mean, I still owe a shit ton of money on my student loans for my degrees that I got to do the job that I wanted to do and that I don't do anymore.
Mm.
So that was, it sucks. But at the same time, I really had time to sit there and think. And you've probably seen the meme going around online and before. And, if you died today, your boss, would be hiring somebody tomorrow to fill your job. Won't even think twice about it. And it's like, I don't want to work. I don't want to be in that anymore. I don't want to be a part of just a cog in a wheel. Like I don't want that anymore. And I think that so many people are starting to wake up and realize that I would much rather make less money and work for somebody that did care if I was there or not, and why I'm there, or if I'm, miserable, or, what's wrong today? Normally you're really, whatever. So I would much rather work in that type of environment than some place that would fire you and uproot your entire life because of some unethical, tyrannical mandate that's been put out by terrible people. So like, to me, it exposed people's true colors, and it exposed a lot. And that's why I'm like, my whole perspective on all of this is completely changed. And I've learned to look at it from the point of view of they are exposing themselves, whether people want to admit it or not. Everything is being exposed. So if you haven't picked up on the signs yet, that's your choice. Okay. Everything is out there. It is blatantly in your face. They don't care about you. This is tyranny. They're trying to take over the world. They're trying to make everybody submit. Like, that is what is happening. No questions asked. There's the light and the dark. It is coming to the apex of this battle right now. The dark knows that they lost, so they're pulling out all the stops. They know that you still have free will, so they have to try to make it and twist it so that you do it without, making it seem like they made you do it, which is why they dangle your job in front of you, because then that makes you do it through your free will. So when you understand all of this and you understand the game, it just changes your perspective a little bit. And now I just laugh because I just see every time they try something new or all this new variant or this new that it's just so obvious. It's so obvious what's happening. And as soon as we tune out and stop playing the game ends. So hopefully people get that sooner rather than later.
Wow. It's like you spoke to so many that are probably going exactly through this transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I'm not sitting here speaking about things that I don't know. I lost my job back in August. So, I'm figuring all this out on my own too. But I also,
Yeah.
like we talked about, that trust and believe and understand that there's been enough proofs in my life for me to trust and believe and, know that better is coming. So.
Mhm. It's just that it's a faster or slower process for everyone.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not sure why. Uh,
It's your evolution. I mean, if you had heard some of the things that I talk about 5 years ago, would you accept them? Or would you think I sounded like a lunatic? So it's really depending
I
on where
have,
you are.
it's funny because when a lot of people actually did have their own life, they were their own bosses and so on, and then I don't know, they just decided to change and started working for somebody.
Mhm.
So it's like going backwards, and then I don't know,
Well,
it's all kinds of ways how I learned, how I observed people had their lives at that,
one
like
thing
their
that people find when they start their own businesses, they're searching for that freedom, and then they realize that they become a slave to that business, and they have less free time than they would if they worked for somebody else. And then, you get the benefits and other things of working for somebody else. So there's that aspect of it too. Finding a way to leverage, making money kind of passively is really the goal, right? So that you're sleeping and then you wake up and you have 5 sales, something to that. So that's where I'm saying, people in both ways. So people, because I thought about 100 different businesses that I was like, oh, I could do this, I could open this, I could do, and then every time I'm like, well, what if I wanted to leave? What if I wanted to travel? What if I wanted to move somewhere else? I'm stuck to this place that I created that's here that has this business. But what if it's online? Then I can go anywhere. Then I can do anything. Now I'm free. So it's just changing that thought process. And I think so many people, and they probably did enjoy doing whatever they were doing, but same with being a musician. When I played in the band, love playing in the band, love making music, love playing live shows. I hate passing out flyers. I hate trying to sell myself and say, hey, come listen to our music. I hate every other part of promoting and everything that goes with being in a band besides playing the music, right? So I think when people open up a restaurant, they love cooking or whatever it is. And then it's bills, and then it's maintenance, and then it's this, and then it's all these other things, and then it's working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day because somebody didn't show up to work. And so it's a lot more than people realize what they're getting into. And then on top of the COVID, when there's no money coming in, so there's those factors as well. But I think that's where, like I said, you could sit there and look at it as a problem or an opportunity. It's your choice.
So those centers that we would be building, we as a society, not me probably, not you and I don't know.
You never know. I don't know who's all involved.
You
So.
never know, true. But so imagine that you could actually, because you mentioned in the video, there are going to be hundreds of them.
Yeah.
At some point. And so, yeah, even if you have a physical job that you have to go to, would I call it a physical job? I guess it's not online, but it's like
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah.
In person.
So in person. So you could actually travel because you could be doing the same thing in all kinds of these buildings or centers, or I don't know how they
Exactly.
call
And I
them.
don't necessarily think that I'm going to be responsible for hundreds of these buildings. I think I'm going to be, I have no idea. I know at least one is from what I understand, but I know there's going to be hundreds. And I think that there are a lot of other people who are getting similar downloads right now and visions of these buildings, and they're all going to have their own unique, like we were talking about before, the vibe to it, where, your vibe is a little different than my vibe maybe, and whatever you want how to decorate it, it's going to be the same idea, the same building principles and resonance ideas, and the geometry and all that stuff will be the same, but how you decorate it will be different than mine. My vibe will be a little different than yours, and everybody's around the world will have their own unique, aspect to them. So how many of them are mine? But the whole idea is, if you have one in wherever you live, in Toronto or Ontario, have one in Ontario, and then have one in Florida, and have one in California, and have one in Europe, and wherever. And then each one that you go to and learn from, they all have their own perspective, and they're all on a different journey in their evolutionary process. So you learn different things and different perspectives, and no one is right and no one is wrong. So it's kind of that, just place for you to go and learn and observe and get as much as you can out of it from all these different places.
I thought of, let's say you said you would have that one as your like base, right? But then any kind of any kind of place you go to, it would still feel like home because it's about the same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's got the same goal. I would imagine it's the same principles behind it, so the same things going on, but the discussions might be a little bit different. And the way I perceive things, or the messages that I get, you may perceive them a little bit differently based on your experiences or your evolution. So we can talk about how they're similar or how they're different, or and come up with new ideas or whatever it is. So.
I think we already are.
Yeah,
it's just not in the building.
Yeah, well, and that's what they kind of told me too, is I believe that a lot of this is like the preparation phase, I guess, where it's, getting people to follow on YouTube, and having people that would come to these buildings, finding other like-minded people who are doing this, having these sort of discussions, where other people can, chime in or comment, or, hear the same ideas and thoughts and whatever else. But I think it's just sort of that building phase right now of kind of, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, kind of narrowing it down to, all right, this is how it's going to go, and this is what it's going to be like, and that sort of thing. So, but I think the main idea of all of it is just like a place where people can truly be who they are, from a soul level. We're coming here to learn, to experience, to evolve. And what better place to do that than with other enlightened beings who have all these different perspectives and, messages from beyond or whatever, getting together and discussing these things.
Unfortunately, Facebook has a really bad reputation, but we still use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Facebook's just like we talked about with Disney. It's that duality of everything that's in the third dimension. There's the amazing things, such as us being able to connect to, set up these whatever, or having like I posted, I didn't start one. I took over a Facebook group for channeling.
Right.
So, there's that good aspect where now we can share with people, we can meet with people, we can have these ideas and, those sort of things. And then you have obviously the nefarious aspects of it at the same time. So, everything has its good and bad side, including people. There's people who have some skeletons in their closet too, but are really good people. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, women do have these safe space, they would call it safe space. More and more masculine groups, I would call them men's group, are being formed with the same idea, where you can just be yourself and without no judgment. Because I mean, so what was very challenging for me, and it is what it is, but it was challenging for me. I went to, it was government funded, a mindfulness group, and let's say there were 50 people. I went there, I don't even know how. So we had a workshop with naturopath at our workplace, and then she started talking about mindfulness, and she said that they're mindfulness programs, but they like you go through the whole, let's say, understanding of how mindful you can be in all aspects of your life. And then also there would be a little bit of like what you went through as a child, and then what makes your life a little harder. So look at yourself, like, why are you scared approaching your boss, telling him or her something, right? And so on. If you feel uncomfortable, you just don't feel happy coming to work, because that was all about it. Like people who would more be anxious or struggling with certain aspects, right? And usually it would be the workplace, because that's like, yeah, you can create your family, but you have to have the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so there are lots of people coming forward for the same reason, but with various issues, or the issue background of the issue was different. Somebody came from the PTSD from work or army as well, right? And so on. Somebody had a family. So this guy had 2-year-old daughter, and he was South American, and the mom of the toddler girl was Russian. So I'm not sure how it works, because I know that if you have a child together and you live in the same country, let's say, if we have a child together, I cannot leave the States if you don't allow you. I would have to keep the child there, right? If I want to go, I can go.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to just take the child and go, right? So
Right.
I'm not sure how that went for him, but she basically took the girl and left to Russia, and he had no idea where they are. And it's very devastating, for sure. I understand. I would go crazy. But during one of those meditations, when it was at the end of this one particular weekend, the entire day we could not speak together, because the idea was to stay quiet, just as much within yourself as possible.
Mhm.
And even if you go to the washroom and you go, we were told to get our own food, so then you don't have to be buying and opening your mouth and talking to someone, right? So it was in a hospital, but it was like in a different department of the hospital, where we wouldn't interact with like the sick people and so on, right? But still, there was like a how do you call it, like food court or something, right? So you don't have to interact with the people, but you can go and sit somewhere where you can be by yourself. So if people want to pass you by, want to ask you something, right, you don't have to face this situation or something. So as much as possible, just stay away and so on, right? And so the end, we had the group meditation, and after that we could just leave that space, and then we could start talking. But he burst in cry, and I could not take it. Like I judged him. I could not emotionally take that I see a man crying. I felt so uncomfortable. I was like, stop it.
Hmm. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but it was very interesting for me to realize that. I felt
Yeah.
so bad about myself, because I realized that I am not emotionally ready to accept. I would cry a lot, for sure. And any woman would cry a lot there too, right? And nobody would ever, feel it or see it different, certain way. But if a man started, that the whole atmosphere could just tell how everybody got uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, I can see it. I
They're
mean,
not used to. Anyway, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, I think there's the little bit of societal, conditioning in that, but I believe there's merit to it because, um, like I don't think it's a bad thing to be in touch with your emotions or to cry when it's, necessary or something like that. But I also think that there's a line where somebody tells you no, you shouldn't start crying, or somebody corrects you, or so. I'm speaking for men, like I feel like, there's a time and a place to be vulnerable. An animal dies, your mom dies, if, somebody close to you, whatever, or something emotional happens, whatever, that's fine. But when somebody, yells at you or something and you start crying, like, yeah, that's embarrassing. Like there's definitely there has to be balance of, being in control of yourself and your emotions to some degree, where, some things it's totally understandable, like I said, but I tend to agree with you in that regard. With, it's tough for me too. I'm not a crier. I've cried a few times through this process though, in the hypnosis state. When I met Jesus, I've cried every time. It's pretty intense. But other than that, like I always say, like I think the only other times I've cried was when I was born and my dog. No, I'm being facetious, but yeah, I feel like there's kind of a, you know, there's a time and a place. This whole being in touch with your feelings is great and all those things that they're trying to, but I really think that there's a huge agenda to make men effeminate so that they can't defend themselves, and that we're headed towards this complete, control of society. And what better way than to have an effeminate men who can't defend themselves? Because the only thing standing between tyranny and, freedom is men who are willing to do bad things to other men.
Actually, do you believe that applies to women too? because, just because it's okay to see a woman cry, and it's uncomfortable to see a man cry, it doesn't mean that you're gonna cry all over the place, right? Whatever, I don't
Oh
know,
yeah. I
happens,
mean, people
because
who, and I know that there's, you know, some people that just truly can't control it. I think, they cry when they're happy, or they cry when they're mad, or they cry when they're sad. Like it's
yeah,
almost
but
like
that's
a,
also something telling you
yeah,
something isn't okay, because that's
yeah,
the grounding about, right? So
yeah,
even in feminine circles, it's like we do hold space and people can cry, but it's like, yes, you do have emotions. However, you need to control it so you don't burst too much, or not often, because then it means you're not grounded.
yeah.
So the
And I
same
do
goes
feel
for
like,
women.
there's a balancing act there. And the more I learn about energy and things like that, I tend to believe that a lot of these different emotions and expressions and outbursts and things that we have are energy that just has to get out in some way. And a lot of it, let's face it, many people are very sedentary in their lives. They don't exercise. They don't get any kind of energy moving through and out of their body. So it builds up. And so it has to be released in some way. And for some people, it's crying. And for other people, it's anger. And for other people, it's, put another, emotion on it. So I think that we have to understand that there has to be an energy release. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go run 5 miles or anything like that. Like playing an instrument is a huge energy release. Singing, dancing, all of these different activities, just things that give you joy, that take energy. Sitting there watching a television all day is
No, no,
not,
no, there's no energy. But yeah, it could be cooking, it
there's
could
energy.
be,
It's just not good
yeah,
energy. That
or it
blue,
could be
that blue
driving
light
too.
frequency and stuff
No,
it's
yeah.
lowering your vibration.
It's so cool that you just, brought this up, because uh yeah, activities, right? And again, you probably don't dance,
Mhm. Not a dancer.
but you wouldn't do anything like, what are you doing right here, right? If somebody dances around you.
Me personally, no. I'm kind of pretty non-judgmental. If it makes you happy, I don't really care.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think one big problem with our society is people are so busy that they don't even know what gives them joy. And they think that watching TV all day is that substitute or something. And really they're just kind of numbing themselves.
Yeah. Another thing is when they tell you that just go and watch a movie, or I don't know, just go and start working out, or just go and you gotta go jogging or something. How do you know that's good for me, or that I want to do that, right?
Right.
But yeah, many people are suggestible. Yeah.
And this is what's interesting, because I think there are things that don't vibe with us. And then there is a threshold that we have to be pushed through sometimes to realize that there's
Okay.
things on the other side of them that we really enjoy, but we have to go through this uncomfortable phase to know. Um, like that was kind of one of the things that I had to come to terms with a little bit. Like when I would work out, it was like, all right, I have to do everything I possibly can until I can't move anymore, or I didn't get the full workout. And now it's like, I just do yoga and I feel better afterwards, regardless of how long or how short I do it. If my body feels better afterwards, then I accomplish my mission. Right. So, and I started to, just changing that mindset of, I have to lift every weight in the gym or in my basement or whatever, to if I feel better afterwards, then that's the whole point. My energy is moving properly. My back doesn't hurt. I'm feeling loose and my mind feels clear. If all those things are accomplished, then I don't need to go run 5 miles. I don't have to go lift all the weights in the gym. I just need to feel better, and I need to get that energy moving through my body. So whatever that is for you, it may be 10 minutes of going through, a couple of vinyasas or something in yoga, and you feel better, and that's all you need. Some people it may take longer, and every day is going to be different too. Some days I do an hour and a half yoga. Some days it's 10 to 15 minutes. It just depends on how I feel and what I want to do. And I don't beat myself up on those days that it's shorter or longer. If I feel like I want to do more, I do more. If I feel like I don't, I listen to my body. And every day is different. So some days I don't do it at all. It just depends on my schedule. So I try to do it every day, but I don't beat myself up if I miss it either. So it's kind of that coming to the understanding of balance in life. And you're doing yourself more harm beating yourself up over missing that thing than you are attending that thing, if that makes sense.
No,
Because
no,
it's a
for
lot
sure.
about vibration, and you're lowering your vibration by beating yourself up. And, there is that fine, everything's balance. Everything is finding that, because just like with the ego, this whole ego death that the spiritual community talks about, how you have to crush your ego and you can't have an ego. Well, what if your ego tells you to work out and to be a better person? Isn't that a good thing? Shouldn't you want that ego there? What if your ego makes you get up in the morning and go be productive or whatever it is? So you need that ego there to a degree. When the ego is bad is when it becomes your identity. When you identify as the ego, that's when it's out of control. But the ego can push you to be great, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it should be there to balance you out. And you should have a nice balance of ego and humility. When either one of those gets out of control, you're out of balance. If you're too humble, then you're not achieving what you truly can achieve because you don't think that you're that good. But when your ego is out of control, then you think you are that and you're the greatest and you don't have to get better and you can tell everybody. So it's that finding that balance of, I believe I can do anything, but I don't tell you that I believe I can do anything. If that makes sense. It's a quiet confidence. It's knowing that I can do it, but I don't have to tell you that I can do it.
Yeah. Well, as long as you don't always have to explain yourself.
Yeah. Well, but I think that so like, for instance, the healing that I've talked about with you a little bit, a couple of times, that I was, and I've meditated on what it is and what I'm supposed to do. And so like they told me, it's kind of, just the difference between being confident and cocky, where I have to believe that I can heal anything, any disease, whatever it is. I have to believe in my core that I can do that. But I'm not going to tell you that I can heal your cancer or anything like that. I'll say whatever happens, happens, and we hope for the best, but I'm never going to go out and proclaim that I can do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to say, here is this healing that's available to you. If it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, that's all I can do. Right. So it's that difference between knowing, and I do believe that I can, deep down, but I don't proclaim that I'm going to, I would never advertise that. I probably shouldn't even be talking about it on here, but
Yeah, that's a good word, advertise it. Yeah.
yeah. So I just, my goal is to share my gift with as many people as want to receive it. And that's about,
Well, and when you say you deep down know that you can, it's because you do have that belief, right?
yeah. But
Yeah.
like I said, there's a difference between knowing it in myself and telling you that I can do X, Y, or Z, so I'm never going to go around proclaiming that I can do anything other than, you know, transfer the energy that they have allowed me to transfer.
And another thought I had, how people don't understand each other, is also being competitive,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you were talking about the ego and so on, just this jumped in. When I love competitions, but it's because it's fun for me to be like the excitement of, I don't know, let's say you would play uh quickly, I don't know, this game, Hangman, for example, right? So you have like, I would have students in 2 3 groups, right? And we would play Hangman. And I would love to play games with my students. And then another teacher was like, I can't, I'm not competitive and so on. And I'm like, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to like, put down some people and like uh, celebrate victory of some other group or so. But it's like, I just enjoy the excitement, how students can, I don't know, just jump up and down and just get excited and maybe even get angry or something, whatever that is. But it's part of just, I don't know, fun, excitement for me. I don't know how to call it, and I couldn't explain it. And then just, you don't end up friends anymore because there's like this difference. Or she was so strongly against zoos and animals, but then I'm like, but I do have kids, and it's amazing for me to take them there, and so they can see the spiders, they can see the ostrich. Normally they wouldn't have that chance. So just like the Disney again, right? And then at some times I was, I didn't find that I resonate with many people because they always had something, and I was like, it's not my intentions, or it's not that it makes me a bad person. It did make me feel guilty at some points, when you are not as set in yourself, knowing who you are. That can be pretty manipulative, basically, people having opinions on you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of the goal of transcending this third dimension is to be able to kind of elevate and zoom out and see both perspectives, because I think so many people do that. They find their side, they dig in on it, and they say, this is where I'm at, this is my, and they fail to even want to see what the other side is presenting or offering, and to be able to take that zoomed out perspective and see what both sides are kind of seeing the third perspective, sort of, so to speak. I think that's what really the goal for a lot of people should be moving forward, is to try to take that perspective and see, yeah, you understand why she didn't like competition, because she felt bad for the losers and whatever else. So you can see that part of the duality, and then you can see the other side of competition where it brings out the best in people. And that's one thing I always said would, like in football, when, I don't know if you're familiar, but they do like the 40-yard dash to see how fast people are or whatever. And I always said, if you lined up two guys that are similar speed and had them race each other, you're going to get way faster times than you ever would get by one guy running himself. And it's just that competition that it brings out in people. And sure, there's a winner and a loser, but this is the problem that society has created with that. The loser has been, oh, it's okay, we need to make you feel as good as the winner, because what really is supposed to do is little Johnny goes and loses the championship game, and then that really motivates him to be better next year. So he goes and works extra hard in the off season to make himself better and make himself his team better, so that he can experience what it's like to win next year, instead of it being like, oh, you're just not good enough, but here's a trophy anyway. Now you don't have to get any better because at least you were there and you tried. Like, that is what we've done to competition, and it's completely doing the opposite, of what was intended, I hope, of what was intended. But yeah, I think that and I think that there's there should be healthy competition too, where I think that sometimes, you see certain things. Like, I was reading a stat the other day, and they were saying some kid threw like 10 touchdown passes in a football game and they won like 102-0. And I'm like, why would that kid even still be in the game after it's 50-0 and he's throwing all the, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, what are you trying to prove there? And these are kids. Like, what is that coach thinking? What kind of thing is he trying to prove? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That's not competition. That's just somebody being a dick, so the game's over. The game's decide. You don't need to do all that. So there's, in everything, there's layers to it, and there's different, viewpoints and everything else. But I think that a healthy competition is definitely a good thing, especially if it brings out the best in people, and like you said, that's an individual basis too.
Mhm. I completely agree. And I have yet third insightful. I don't know. For me, it was maybe position to it. I never really cared that I lost if I did. But maybe, let's say I would be the third person running, right? And I would end up in the middle, or be the loser, like the third person, and not the first. So I would just be like, oh, it was so much fun. Oh, I'm so exhausted. I would not even think about, should I improve or so, right? As you were saying, but I do completely get it. Now, what I'm thinking is maybe because what you give importance to. So
That's
I
what I was
love
just gonna
dancing.
say.
So if I
Yeah.
go to dance competition, I probably be going crazy if I lose, because damn, that matters to me a lot.
Right. And I'm the exact same way. If it's something that's inconsequential, I mean, I try to win everything I do. I want to win, but at the same time, like you said, the importance that you give things, does this mean that much to me, or am I just competing for the fun of competing? Am I competing because somebody asked me to, and I just, I'm going to give my best because I'm there? But there's that, the layers to that too, where some people, like you said, they lose at tiddlywinks and they're going to have a really bad day. And it's like, does it matter? Like, I get being frustrated in the moment or something, you wanted to win, everybody wants to win, but there's definitely degrees to that. And then there's, like football for us. I mean, that literally was, if we lost too many games, we're going to get fired, so it's like, there's a degree of like, you have to win, to an extent. So, where performance is your, that's how you keep your job or not. So, there's all different levels to why you should care or shouldn't care, put importance on, different competitions or whatnot. But, I think, one thing I can say, and like I said, I'm definitely not as competitive as I used to be. And that's part of the reason I don't coach anymore and stuff, is it's kind of lost that sense of me to a degree. But I think, I forgot where I was going with this.
I think you
the
wanted to say it didn't bring you any kind of good feelings about like seeing people lose or win. You didn't
well,
really.
oh, this is where I was going. So like in youth sports, I coached high school football, so I would see all the kids who came up and what they basically learned or didn't learn through the youth programs. And there's so much put on winning and losing for kids, and these adults care so much about their win-loss record as coaches coaching these kids and this sort of thing. By the time that we get them in high school, they don't know anything about football. They didn't know anything about the game. They just knew the plays that they had to run to try to win the game. That didn't help anybody anywhere, right? Other than where they were at that time. So it's like, as much as I'm a competitive person and I want to, if there's a scoreboard, I want to win. I feel like, a lot of youth sports would benefit way more from them not playing any games and just learning and just going through and actually learning the basics and not having any importance put on winning a game on Saturday, because now all of the fundamentals are being lost. All of the things, all the importance is put on the scoreboard instead of on teaching the kids. And so I feel like there's this disservice that sometimes competition brings too. So it's like, it's just finding that everything's balance, finding that
Yeah.
balance.
I had this picture of like, let's say natives, right? They would, especially in Canada, we know lacrosse comes from actually natives, right? That's how it was discovered, I don't know, founded. And so it's like a national sport, right? Apart from hockey, I've heard that's also natives sports. It's not like Canadians invented it or so. And so then they would definitely play against each other. But at the end of the day, they have this fire and they have, how do you call it? I don't know what they smoked, whatever it was. I
Oh,
don't
the
know.
peace pipe or whatever.
Yeah. Right. And everything would be great.
Yeah.
And
And
that's how
I
it.
think
Mhm.
that would be the most beneficial spirit of competition, where when the game's on, the clock's ticking, you're in between the lines, whatever it is, you're, full force competition. And then when it's over, you shake their hand and you say, good game, no matter who won or lost, and it's over. And I think that would be the ultimate goal of competition and sports and those sort of things. But, it's hard too, when, like I said, if your job depends on you winning and you lose, it's hard to be optimistic about that. You know what I mean? It's hard to say, oh, it's okay, no big deal. We tried hard. It's like,
Takes
yeah,
away the
well,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, because now you don't have any way to feed your family whenever they fire you for not doing well. So it's hard. But youth sports, there's nobody's jobs really relying on their win-loss record. So I think that maybe we could take a step back and try to teach a little bit more. And I think that makes the game safer at every level when you start young and teach them the right way to do things. Then by the time they're in high school and older, it's just instinct and natural.
I had this question for you. You are Ascension Guide, and so many people are getting to know you. And maybe I can ask you something you can answer. Where, in what area of your life you are still like underachieving that you want to? Because we know about you that you are progressing in a lot of areas, and you can talk about a lot of things and so on confidently. That's great. Is there any area that you're like, I don't know, maybe you want to be better at, or you suck in it, like I do?
Yeah, let me let my
Let's
dog
say I
out real
do.
quick
I'm
because he's
really.
whining at me, and I'll answer that question quick.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Yes. So I have a lot of areas
You
that I
do.
try to work on. I'm very much critical of myself and try to work on my faults as much as possible. Patience is definitely a big one. I'm not a very patient person, especially momentary patience is tough, but also like in this process, kind of just this whole trusting and waiting, and that's why I try to keep myself as busy as possible so that I'm not, focusing and perseverating on, the things that happen. But definitely patience is a tough one. I'm learning to trust, this process and myself, and, learning, like I said, distinguishing the voices and distinguishing what's, their messages, and trying not to conflate them with my own messages and, anything like that. But, and every day is kind of that battle too, where, like I was saying, and I'm getting to the point where it's better now, but before it was like, oh, you didn't work out, you piece of shit, just that sort of thing, or you got to do this, or, fighting over, with myself over, oh, you missed that, you didn't do this, or, and just kind of like, okay, it's no big deal. I can do it tomorrow. I can do it later, or I won't do it at all. And, just kind of being okay with that and accepting that things don't always have to be so perfect. Like, and, living with kids has definitely, because they're my stepkids or my wife's kids. And, before
Can you
I
say
moved
how
in,
old they are?
19 and 14.
Okay,
And
so they're older. They're not like toddlers or
no, no, no,
little
no,
elementary kids. Okay.
no. So, but like my apartment when I lived by myself was very, my hangers had 2 finger spaces between them. Everything was neat and orderly and clean
Well, you
and
were in
exactly.
military.
Yeah. So I'm very, you know, but over the years I've learned to kind of relax a little bit in that sense. And I think it was, part of the lesson I got to learn, that it's not so important that everything be, your remote doesn't have to be exactly 90 degrees. 50. So just, certain things that you kind of, I've loosened up a little bit in that regard. But, at the
That
same time,
doesn't
I
drive
do.
you crazy.
Oh yeah. And everybody I've lived with is, been messy to some degree. It seems like in my
That's
life. So
why.
yeah. And that's why I've kind of come to that it's not that, I mean, it is, there's definitely, like I said, balance. It's everything's balance. So you don't want to live in a pigsty, but you also don't
No,
need
no.
to worry about your remotes not facing the appropriate direction when they're sitting on the tables. There's that level of obsessiveness that doesn't need to be there.
That's the obsession compulsive disorder.
Yeah, I think
I
a
do
little bit
have
of
that
that.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not, like I said, what it really is, I think, now that I've kind of learned more about energy and stuff, and especially when I was learning about some witchcraft things, and they talk about like casting your circle and all that stuff, and how the energy of items, so clutter is a cluttering of energy, essentially. There's so much things that have energy and have an aura to them, and they're all within this tiny little area, and you feel all that when you're sensitive to energy. So it's like there is a purpose behind it, but there's a line that's like, okay, you're cleaned up enough. It doesn't matter which way this is facing, or if there's 2 finger spaces between your hangers, or just little things like that. But yeah, I think it's a lot to do with, I feel it. Like when I walk into a cluttered room, I just, I instantly start to get like anxiety. So
I started being a minimalist. I'm not sure how that happened. Maybe also because I was used to a lot more money. So then you have obviously more things.
yeah,
Then I had less. But then I don't know. I just, I felt like, yeah, the clutter. So I never lived in really kind of spaces where people would have so many things in small places, or everything. But just wide space and so much air. And for example, I don't even have lots of furniture that I probably need because I need to dance. So I have like my living room is my dance floor, and I just can't afford to have, I don't know, 10-bedroom house so that I have my own studio there or something.
right.
And my kids are like, Mom, I need a chair here. And I'm like, okay. Because I had one, I threw it away. It was given to me and it was like getting old. And I'm like, I don't even know. It was passed on from person to person. Like when I moved from a suburb to Toronto, it's like people try to help you with like giving you stuff or something, right? So
Yeah.
that one chair I did take and I threw it away because I'm like, it was from somebody's grandmother and it was theirs and it was somebody else, his son, and now from his son to me, I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure if there's some bugs. It was okay probably, but I don't know. Like it's a
Yeah.
mattress, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's a lamp or something that you can wipe and it's fine, but it's just they're missing it and they constantly bring it to my attention like, oh, it was such a comfortable chair and so anyway, I'm like, oh, another piece of furniture. So you know it's
Yeah.
very interesting how naturally, yeah, I feel like I'm not studying feng shui, but you just intuitively know it's too much, right? And
Yeah.
you need more space, or you need brighter colors, or you just
Yeah.
don't feel good anymore if it's like too much mess. And for example, for me, it would be kitchen, right? Kitchen and bathroom, I always have to clean, even if the floor isn't, or let's say there's like pillows all over the place, or bedroom isn't, I don't make my beds or something. I don't care about that anymore too. But if you step in somebody's place and the bathroom isn't clean, I would be like, ugh.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a
Yeah.
woman thing. I don't know.
Oh no, but I don't know. I get what you're saying, but I also, at this point, I wouldn't, everybody lives their own way. Some people are disgusting and, but yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. I'm kind of the same way too. But I think there's also people who, like, I am definitely, like, I don't like, things to be looking gross or grimy or dusty or anything, but my bigger pet peeve is clutter. When things are on the floor, just left everywhere, or not put where they're supposed to go, like that bothers me way more than something that, if it was neat and it's a little dirty, yeah, it doesn't bother me. But like when stuff's just everywhere and it's dirty, then it's just like, oh my God, you're just gross.
Like with babies or toddlers, they like to
Yeah,
drag things from all kinds of places, put it together. For them, it's a house, right? For you, it's just bunch of pile of things.
yeah, exactly. So it
Have
gets,
you experienced babies or kids, like little kids?
from a distance. I've never been a big fan of kids, so.
No, but I mean like in family or something. So do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe not. Yeah.
I've seen it and it makes me insane when I've seen friends in their houses. It looks like a baby playground exploded in their living room or something. It makes me cringe thinking about it. But yeah, I really don't get it, because I think that a lot of people just use it as an excuse. And it's like, you could clean up or make your kid clean up. Like, they can do it. They're capable of it. I've seen it. Babies that were just old enough to walk putting away their own toys. So don't tell me it can't be done. It's just but everybody's different, and maybe some people enjoy it. I don't know. So for me, it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, and then does it also translates into what kind of cluttered life you have?
Well, and I definitely, the motto, cleanliness is next to godliness, is something that has stuck with me for a long time. And I definitely feel more peace when it's clean. I feel my head's not as, clutter. I feel like clutter affects a lot more than just the environment. I think it affects your mind. I think it, and that's why I think a lot of people who live in clutter are the type of people that they are, because their mind is so cluttered also, and they can't clean, both places. So I think that it's just a overwhelming of energy sometimes, and people don't know, people have no idea what's going on or what they're experiencing, so they don't know that that's the factor. But you look at most people who are, what are those people called, the hoarders or whatever, and
Oh
have
yeah.
this disgusting, and most of them are not mentally stable. They're not people that you would take sound advice from. So it's kind of like, is there a correlation there? I believe so.
So two questions I have for you. It's not an interview, but I do have questions for you. I don't know. Maybe I am more of a kind of asker and you are more of an answerer.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, do you speak more or do you ask questions?
Oh, I definitely ask questions more.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well, I
because
guess
for one reason, that's my way of teaching, is if I ask you a question and you come to the
like a
answer on your own,
Pythagorean type of approach.
the Socratic method.
Socratic, sorry. I
Yeah.
don't know why this I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe that that is the best way to teach people, when they can come to the answers and conclusions on their own through their own thought process, instead of them asking you a question and then you say, yeah, here's the answer. And then they're going to forget it 5 seconds later. But if you make
Right.
them connect the neurons and go through the thought process of why that is, and they come to that answer on their own, then they actually create those connections and learn what you're teaching them.
I don't think I give you Socratic questions though. But
No.
do
Well, I mean, it's different too. You're not trying to teach me anything right now either. We're just kind of getting to know each other and letting other
yeah.
people kind of learn
So
stuff.
right. And it's also like you are being viewed. So it's good to know about you too. I don't know about what would you advise people to then, what kind of process to take if they feel like they are cluttered?
Hmm. Prioritize and execute. And this is from a book that I read, that from a Navy SEAL. And I mean, I had the same feelings before I read the book, but he just kind of made it very succinct and clear. If you have a list of things to do, most important thing goes on top, least important thing goes on bottom. Start working on number one until it's done, and then do number two, and then do number three until it's gone. And whether you have to physically create a list or you can do it in your head, whatever it is, prioritize and execute. So many people on this planet are stuck in the planning phase. I have to do this, I got to do that. This is the plan. It's the greatest plan in the history of plans. Never put it into action. Just start doing and fix it. People walk into a room, it's so messy. I don't even know where to start. I don't even, pick something up and put it away, and then pick up the next thing and put it away, and then pick up the next thing until it's gone. That's how easy it is. You start and then it's finished. When you sit there and worry about it or plan or have this great idea of how it's all going to come together, you've just wasted how much time that you could have been sitting there picking things up and putting them away, and it could already be halfway done. That's where so many people, like, they look at this mountain that they have to climb and fail to realize that the only way you climb a mountain is by taking one step and then another step and then another step until you're at the top of the mountain. You don't sit there and stare at it and say, what a huge daunting mountain, and then you're at the top of it. That's not how it works. You start walking and then eventually you're at the top. And that's how you fix clutter. You just start picking up stuff
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you walk away completely just to face it again, even worse.
exactly. Well, I have enjoyed this conversation very much, but I have to run, so I will have to end this. But I would
Sure.
definitely like to do it again. I like having these conversations with you, and I think it helps other people as well. So,
Sure. Can you summarize what it was about?
what's that?
This we spent good time. What did we all talk about?
Oh God, we've been all over the place.
Yeah,
I know.
yes.
I
Do
always
you
like to.
do you like to keep it like that, or do you want to focus on specific topics?
I honestly, I like the flow. I like when it just kind of feels natural, like a conversation. I think people, I don't know, I would assume people like that better too. When it's kind of, I know sometimes we get a little, you start talking about one thing and get diverted. I know I do it all the time, but so yeah, you do a pretty good job of keeping me on path though, talking about stuff. So
Okay.
yeah,
So we
I
have good
definitely
dynamics.
enjoy. Yeah, I like the free form. I think it's a little bit more flowy and natural.
Yeah, for sure. I do totally feel that every conversation there is a good advice from everything that you say.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Hmm. Do
it.
you we all do too. Do you feel like you are in preparation phase for what you would be doing
Yeah,
once
yeah,
the buildings are up? That's actually what
especially
you would be doing.
yeah, and well, I think it's preparation, clarification, kind of, starting to really get an idea and a grasp of what I'll be doing, what's kind of the skills necessary, kind of fine tuning them now through asking. And I find that doing these sort of things, it helps me answer some questions on my own that I didn't even really think about, but then you ask and I'm like, well, what is my purpose, or, whatever it is. And I got to kind of really think about it. And I think that helps me kind of advance through it too. So it's definitely beneficial mutually, for sure. So I appreciate it.
Mhm. And I do have a question, but that's the best to end the video with so that
Yeah.
we know what we want to be answering next time.
Yeah.
And hook people up, maybe. I actually wanted you to tell us also what would be the process if they want to start channeling for themselves, but in a way that they're not channeling really entities or archangels, or they're just serving themselves more or less, right?
I think it's all
I'm
the,
not sure. You could talk about anything when it comes to this, like, why would I want to learn how to channel? How to learn how to channel? Because I did ask you, can you teach me, right?
yeah.
And now I'm not sure what kind of answer are you going to give me? Are you, or are you? I mean, you did say yes, but then we also talked about the false gurus. So that's the going back to the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be the topic for next time.
So yeah, definitely. Briefly, I would just say the first step is clearing your mind and being in control of your, you know, being that open and clear channel and setting that intention to become a clear and open channel for high vibrational energy. Don't open yourself up to anything.
And so before we will finish and start again,
Mhm.
is that the instructions you were given, or
No.
is it kind of like yours? Because why I'm asking this is, there are courses in channeling, how to channel. There are courses, there are books that teach the process, right? So
Mhm.
that's something that we can definitely open up to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
next
We can get
time.
into that next time for sure.
And I would review, because I just purchased like a book on channeling, like a basic one, just to learn what it is all about and like what do they actually say. Because the first experience I had with channeling was I just wanted to know actually my star origin, right? As
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was learning about that, I was like, that's not something I would be able to deal with, like health problems. I didn't really need to, or relationships and all these things. People can get answers, right? But I wanted to know something beyond my capacity to do for myself. And so the next time when I did ask you, like, how do you discern when you trust or don't trust yourself, right? Can you channel for me one specific person? And it's like, for example, the business decision, right? You don't really know. And so anyway, you did give me answer with the feeling from inside, but that's not only what you do when you are maybe learning how to channel, but then there are uh, more trivial things for, it's difficult but trivial for what the channeling can give you, right?
yeah.
Answering, is it true or is it false? Should I decide for this or should I decide for that? Those are like, earthly things, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
But there are answers that you, for example, really want, such as the structure of the universe and what's going on, right? For
Yeah.
real and for real.
Yeah.
And so you do need maybe, I don't know, more than just a gut feeling.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind too is they've told me, plenty of times, and Araya, claims to be from the 12th dimension. But, one, they say all the time they're still learning too. They don't have all the answers. They don't know everything. And to also understand that whoever is giving you this channeled information is giving it to you based on their perception, based on their evolution. So it doesn't mean that it's like we've talked about. I made a video about all the different sides of the truth, and it's all just a different perspective from somebody's evolutionary point. So maybe that's why it doesn't resonate for some people, and for some people it does. It just depends on where you are on your journey too. So keep that in mind, when you're channeling as well. So, but yeah, thanks so much for having that. I really enjoy these conversations. I think they do
Right.
definitely benefit a lot of people. I hope it benefits me. So at the very least, I definitely appreciate it.
Same here, same here. So you
Yeah,
have to go. I
yeah,
wish you a beautiful weekend
you
and
too.
let me know whenever you want to come back.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye bye.
Yep, you too. Bye.